When you think of the Philippines, you probably picture paradise, the white sand beaches of Palawan, the crystal clear water, the perfect tropical getaway. It's the kind of peace people travel across the world to find. But there is a reality here that doesn't look like a vacation. Imagine waking up, not to the sound of the ocean, but to that mechanical hum. You're locked inside a cold, windowless concrete room. You aren't looking at a beach, you're staring at a monitor for 18 hours a day. And bolted to the wall right next to you is a heavy steel bar. I spent hours researching this, and I'm telling you right now, it made my skin crawl. I actually had people tell me not to look into this. They said there are corners of this country's internet that are better left buried, that the syndicates running these operations are too big and too connected to expose. But I couldn't look away, because the danger here is completely invisible. The monsters in the Philippines don't hide in dark alleys. They don't wait for you in the streets. They don't break through your front door in the middle of the night. They are hunting you right now, directly through the screen in your hand, through a random job ad, a normal dating profile, or a simple friend request. They told me not to look into this. I didn't listen, and now I know why. Welcome to the dark side of the Philippines internet. For years, we've all heard the stories about online scams. You get a random message on WhatsApp or a friend request on Facebook from an attractive stranger. They start talking to you, they gain your trust, they pitch a crypto investment, and before you know it, your entire life savings is gone. It's easy to sit back and picture the people behind these screens as criminal masterminds. You imagine them sitting in luxury penthouses, sipping expensive drinks, and laughing at the desperate, lonely people they just deceived. But what if I told you that the person scamming you might actually be a hostage? Let me introduce you to a young man we'll call Dylan. Dylan was a Malaysian national in his 20s. He wasn't a criminal. He wasn't involved in the dark web or illegal hacking. He was just a normal guy, exactly like you or me, trying to figure out his life and looking for a decent way to support his family. In early 2024, Dylan received a message from an old friend, and this wasn't a stranger on the internet. This was someone he knew and trusted. The friend told Dylan about an incredible opportunity. He invited him to travel to the Philippines to celebrate the Lunar New Year, promising him a holiday and a potential high-paying tech support job. Dylan didn't think twice. Why would he? People travel for tech jobs every single day. He booked his ticket, boarded the plane, and expected to land in paradise. When he arrived, Aishon, his friend, picked him up and drove him to a province north of Manila called Tarlac. They pulled up to the gates of the Baofu compound in a town called Bamban. From the outside, it looked like a massive, legitimate corporate park. We are talking about a sprawling 36-building property, but the moment Dylan stepped inside those gates, the illusion of a corporate tech job completely shattered. His friend didn't take him to the HR department. He took him to an office, handed him over to armed men, and then his friend walked out. Dylan's passport was immediately confiscated. His personal phone was taken from him. He was informed, very coldly, that he had just been sold to a Chinese crime syndicate for 300,000 Philippine pesos, about $5,000 US. His friend, the guy he trusted, the guy he traveled across the ocean to see, had literally trafficked him. His friend walked out of that compound a free man with cash in his pocket, and Dylan was now officially a slave. So Dylan had just been locked inside a Pogo, a Philippine offshore gaming operator. Originally, these were supposed to be legal online gambling hubs catering to foreign clients, but deep inside some of these massive compounds, far away from the eyes of regulators, that something deeply sickening was happening. They weren't running casinos, they were running industrial-scale cyberslave camps. This is where the psychological horror truly begins. Dylan wasn't locked in a dark basement. He was forced into a massive, brightly lit warehouse-like room filled with hundreds of computers. His job: he was given a script and forced to go onto Chinese matchmaking sites to create fake profiles. His targets were vulnerable parents who were desperately looking for husbands for their daughters. Dylan had to spend 18 hours a day pretending to be the perfect suitor, manipulating these families, earning their trust, and slowly bleeding them dry. He was given an impossibly high quota. The syndicate bosses told him he had to scam innocent families out of 300,000 yuan, over $40,000 US every single month. Imagine the mental toll of that. You are working 18 hours a day, 7 days a week with no days off. You are exhausted, you are terrified, and your only way to survive is to actively destroy the lives of innocent people on the other side of a screen. If you don't ruin their lives, the syndicate ruins yours. And they made sure every single worker knew exactly what would happen if they missed their targets. If Dylan couldn't scam enough money, he wouldn't just be fired. The bosses didn't use guns to keep people in line. They used pure, calculated psychological terror. If you failed to hit your quota, you were dragged away from your desk and taken to a very specific, soundproofed room inside the compound. There was no elaborate torture device in that room. There was just a heavy steel bar anchored directly into the concrete wall. Workers were handcuffed to that steel bar, completely defenseless and beaten with metal bats. Other workers were forced to watch or forced to listen to the screams echoing down the hallways. The syndicate kept video footage of workers being electrocuted with tasers, using it as a training tool to show the new arrivals what happens when you don't type fast enough. The fear of that steel bar was constantly hanging over Dylan's head. Every single time he hit the send button on a fake message. Dylan only survived because, in a moment of pure desperation, he managed to secretly use one of the scamming phones to bypass the network. He took a photo of the injuries he had sustained from being beaten, sent a frantic message to his family in Malaysia, and deleted the trace. His family immediately contacted the Malaysian embassy, who coordinated with Philippine police. Months later, authorities finally raided the Bamban compound and rescued hundreds of trapped workers. But if you think the police raid means the system worked, you are completely wrong. And the worst part is exactly how a place like this existed in the first place. How does a massive 36-building compound operating as a cyber slave torture hub go completely unnoticed by the government? How do hundreds of foreign nationals get trafficked into a small town without anyone asking questions? And it boils down to absolute rotten systemic betrayal. When police raided the compound, they didn't just find terrified workers in steel bars. They found a network of underground tunnels. The syndicates had literally built escape routes beneath the buildings. When the police finally breached the gates, the top bosses were already gone. They had been tipped off, and who was protecting them? The investigation quickly pointed to the highest authority in the town itself. The local mayor of Bamban, a woman named Alice Guo, was suddenly thrust into the spotlight. Documents allegedly linked her directly to the compound. She was accused of being a Chinese national who had used a fake birth certificate to embed herself into Philippine politics, essentially operating as a protector for the syndicate. She eventually went on the run, fleeing the country before she could be fully brought to justice. The people meant to protect the town were allegedly the ones profiting off the torture happening inside it. The next time you get a random text from a wrong number, or a beautiful stranger messages you on Instagram offering crypto advice, remember Dylan. The person typing that message might not be a criminal mastermind. They might be a prisoner sitting under fluorescent lights, knowing that if you don't send them money, they are going to be dragged into a room with a steel bar. But if you think being physically trapped in a concrete compound is the darkest thing the Philippines' internet has to offer, you are completely wrong. Because while the pogos target your wallet, there is another syndicate that targets your mind, and it starts with a simple webcam chat in a teenager's bedroom. While Dylan was physically trapped in a concrete compound, our next case proves that you don't even have to leave your bedroom to be hunted. If you think the physical torture of the pogo camps is the darkest thing the Philippines has to offer, I need you to brace yourself. Because of this next case, it honestly makes me sick to my stomach just talking about it. Let's go back to 2013. Social media was a bit different back then. Teenagers were using Skype, Facebook, and a Q&A site called Ask.fm. In Scotland, a 17-year-old apprentice mechanic named Daniel Perry was just a normal kid. I really want you to think about this. Think about being 17. You're curious, you're awkward, and you're just looking for a connection. You want someone to like you. That's it. Daniel wasn't doing anything risky or illegal. He was on Ask.fm one evening when he started chatting with someone he believed was an American girl around his age. They moved the conversation over to Skype. It was completely normal. It's flirtatious teenage stuff. The girl on the other end was pushing boundaries, making Daniel feel comfortable, making him feel wanted. Eventually, she convinced Daniel to turn on his webcam. He thought he was just sharing a private, intimate moment with someone he liked. The moment he did it, the illusion shattered. The video feed dropped. The tone of the messages changed instantly. A stranger on the other side of the screen revealed they had recorded everything Daniel just did. They sent him a link to the video as proof, and then the trap snapped shut. They demanded money. They told Daniel that if he didn't send cash immediately, they were going to send the explicit video to his parents, his friends, his employer, and everyone on his Facebook list. Daniel panicked. At 17 years old, social humiliation literally feels like the end of the world. He pleaded with them. He told them he didn't have any money. He begged them not to ruin his life. He had terrified and had no way out. They're terrified and had no way out. Their response was pure evil. They sent him a message that essentially told him to let a blade meet your throat. The fear, the shame, and the absolute panic of his entire world collapsing in on him was too much. Believing he had no other way out, 17-year-old Daniel Perry walked to a massive bridge near his home. And he jumped. He took his own life because of a trap set by a stranger through a webcam. Now, when you hear a story like this, your brain automatically pictures a lone hacker, right? You picture some deranged creep sitting in a dark basement halfway across the world, hiding behind proxy servers and a glowing keyboard. I wish that were true. The reality is so much worse. The horror here isn't bloody, it's corporate. When Interpol and the police finally traced the digital footprints that led to Daniel's death, they didn't raid a basement. They launched Operation Strikeback and raided massive buildings in Taguig City, Bicol, and Laguna. When the police kicked down the doors, they found rows of desks, hundreds of computers, whiteboards, bright fluorescent lights. They found a legitimate corporate call center. The people who drove Daniel to suicide weren't lone hackers. They were 58 employees who clocked in for a 9-to-5 shift. I honestly cannot wrap my head around the level of psychopathy required to do this. 3 guys in their early 20s literally shared a single Facebook account like it was a cash register at a fast food joint. They sat in their cubicles, drank their morning coffee, pretended to be a teenage girl, drove a 17-year-old boy to suicide, clocked out, and went home to eat dinner. And the absolute worst part is the systemic betrayal of it all. This syndicate had turned sextortion into a scalable business model. These cyber blackmailers were given scripts to read. They had quotas to hit. They were literally offered financial bonuses, cash incentives, and holidays for reaching their extortion targets. They treated ruining a human life like hitting a monthly sales quota. Daniel wasn't a person to them. He was just a failed transaction. When he died, they didn't blink. They just closed his chat, opened a new window, and looked for the next teenager. The danger doesn't come from outside anymore. It comes through a notification. But if you think the corporate extortion syndicates are the bottom of the barrel, don't get comfortable. Because while these call centers target your mind, the next syndicate targets your very flesh. If the pogo camps target your wallet and the corporate blackmailers target your mind, our third case targets something far more permanent, your very flesh. We need to talk about poverty for a second, not the kind where you can't afford a new phone. I mean absolute, crushing, desperate poverty. Imagine living in the slums of Manila, maybe the Baseco compound in Tondo. Your mother is sick, your children are starving, and the hospital bills are piling up. You have literally nothing left to sell. So, what do? You do what everyone does when they are desperate. You pull out your phone and you open Facebook, you start scrolling, and suddenly you find a group. It has a completely normal sounding name, something like Kidney Donor Philippines. It doesn't look like a black market cartel, it looks like a community board. There are posts offering fast cash, sometimes up to 100,000 pesos, which is less than $2,000. For a wealthy foreigner, that is pocket change. But for a father watching his kids go hungry, it is a fortune. It feels like a lifeline, but it isn't a lifeline. It is a digital meat market. Underground medical syndicates employ kidney hunters to scour these Facebook groups. They target the most vulnerable, desperate people on the internet. They message you, act like they are doing you a favor, and offer you an all-in package. They tell you they will take care of the paperwork, fake the family relationship documents to make it look legal, and pay you the moment the surgery is done. But here is where the reality of the dark internet crashes into the physical world, and it is grotesque. You aren't taken to a pristine, sterile hospital room. You are taken to a secret, unsanitary clinic. Sometimes just a rented house in the suburbs. You are put under anesthesia, and when you wake up, the nightmare begins. Imagine waking up on a dirty mattress. The pain in your abdomen is blinding, sharp, and absolute. The room smells like cheap bleach and sweat. You reach down, and your fingers brush against a jagged, hastily stitched incision on your side. Your kidney is gone, harvested to be implanted into a wealthy tourist who paid the syndicate a fortune. And the money you were promised, you rarely get all of it. You are permanently mutilated, left weak and prone to lifelong infections, and then you are literally tossed back out onto the street with a fraction of the cash. You traded a piece of your own body for pennies, and your life will never be the same. But the worst part, the absolute worst part of this entire nightmare, is who was actually running it. In July 2024, the National Bureau of Investigation, the NBI, raided a rented house in Bulacan. Inside, they found 9 victims. 4 of them had already been carved open and were missing their kidneys. The police arrested 3 people on the spot, but the alleged mastermind, the leader of this digital blood market, managed to escape. And when they uncovered his identity, it sent shockwaves through the entire country. He wasn't a cartel boss. He wasn't some shadowy gangster with face tattoos. He was a head nurse, a respected medical professional who had worked at the state-run National Kidney and Transplant Institute for 23 years. Let that sink in. The people organizing these Facebook groups, the people butchering desperate fathers in dirty suburban houses, were the exact same people who took an oath to save lives. They used their medical knowledge to turn human beings into spare parts, all facilitated by a simple social media search. The internet doesn't just steal your money, it harvests your organs. But as horrific as that is, there is one final case. A case where the internet didn't just take a piece of someone, it erased dozens of people entirely. Our final case is perhaps the most disturbing of all, because it doesn't just involve the internet stealing a piece of someone or ruining their reputation. It involves the complete coordinated erasure of dozens of human beings in broad daylight, all because of an app on their phone. If you aren't from the Philippines, you might not know about sabong. It's traditional cockfighting. It is a massive cultural pastime here, something people have done for generations. But when the pandemic hit and the world locked down, this traditional sport transitioned to the internet. It became e-sabong. It started out as just another app, a normalized, completely acceptable way to place bets from your couch. It felt perfectly safe. You load up your digital wallet, watch a live stream on your screen, and place a bet. But within months, it exploded into a multi-billion peso digital blood sport. People were going into massive, life-ruining debt from their cell phones. And when that kind of untraceable money flows through unregulated digital channels, the syndicates take over, and that is when the players started vanishing. Between April 2021 and January 2022, 34 men, known locally as sabongueros, mysteriously disappeared. 34 human beings wiped off the map. They weren't hiding, they were taken. Let's look at just one of them. Ricardo Lasco was a 48-year-old master agent for an e-sabong platform. On August 30th, 2021, he was sitting in his own home. Armed men broke in, flashed badges identifying themselves as National Bureau of Investigation agents, and dragged him out into a van. He wasn't taken in the dead of night. He was kidnapped right out of his living room. Later, a terrifying cell phone video surfaced showing Ricardo with his face covered, surrounded by masked men. It was the last time his family ever saw him. Now, when 34 people vanish, you expect bodies to show up eventually, but for a long time there was nothing. It had complete silence, until a whistleblower named Totoy finally came forward and revealed a truth so dark it genuinely feels like a horror movie. The victims weren't just killed, they were systematically erased from the earth. Totoy claimed that the missing men, accused of game fixing on the digital platforms, were rounded up, strangled, and stripped, but the syndicates couldn't risk leaving bodies behind, so they tied the corpses to heavy sacks of sand. They loaded them onto boats in the dead of night, sailed out into the dark, freezing depths of Tail Lake, and threw them overboard. The whistleblower claimed the real death toll wasn't 34. He said it was over 100 people. Later, divers actually went down into the lake following his testimony. What they pulled up from the mud wasn't intact bodies. They found sacks containing charred human bones. The syndicates had literally burned them before drowning the remains, and making it absolutely impossible to identify anyone. But the absolute worst part, the detail that makes you realize just how hopeless this situation is who was driving those vans. Remember how the men who took Ricardo Lasco flashed police badges? They weren't fake badges. The kidnappers weren't random street thugs. They were actual police officers. In December 2024, the Department of Justice officially indicted 15 police officers for kidnapping and homicide. The syndicates running these digital betting apps were so wealthy and so powerful that they literally hired active duty cops to act as their personal mercenary hit squads. The Department of Justice even stated that the operation was so corporate, the killers were reportedly issued vouchers to claim their payment after successfully completing a murder. Think about the absolute terror of that. You're sitting at home, in trouble over a digital bet you made on your phone. You hear a knock at the door. It's the police. You think they are there to help you or maybe arrest you, but they aren't taking you to a jail cell, they are taking you to a lake. The people you are supposed to call for help were the ones throwing you into the van. When we started this video, I told you the reality of the Philippines wasn't just beautiful beaches. I told you that the internet here stopped being a place to connect a long time ago. It is a hunting ground. The monsters aren't waiting for you in a dark alley. They are in your inbox. A simple job ad on Facebook, a late-night webcam chat, or a casual online bet can literally end your life. Danger doesn't break down your door anymore. It asks for your permission through a notification. So honestly, these cases just mess with my head. You dig into this stuff expecting to find isolated criminals hiding in the shadows. But what do you do when the monsters have corporate offices and daily quotas? Is there any real justice when the people meant to protect you, the actual police, are the ones kidnapping you? I don't know. But I know we aren't done digging. What country's dark internet should I expose next? Let me know in the comments below. The comment with the most likes gets the next video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.